Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we are going to do a long-awaited update in my reading journal, so let's go ahead and get started. So it's been a minute. This was my May setup. These were the books that I was reading in May, and May was an extremely busy month for me, like it tends to be every year, regardless of what event job I happen to be in. And so I am still reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It's now July. I'm still reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I've kind of put a halt on the physical books for the time being, until I can get past a crazy period of things that are going on. I've just been binging Brandon Sanderson. That's really where we're at. There's one other book in here that was a 5-star read. We'll get there. But I went ahead and just wrote in here to remind myself work was extra crazy in May, and you kept reading with your ears, and that is absolutely okay. So I just gave myself a little summary. I did it again in June to remind myself that when life gets crazy, you just have to do what you have to do. And sometimes I do an audiobook in the car. Most of the time that's music. Most of my audiobook listening comes in the hour or two before I go to sleep. That's how I like to wind down, so that I'm not looking at a device. I'm listening to something, don't have the blue light. And if you know anything about Brandon Sanderson's books, they're massive. So the audiobooks take a long time, even if you have them on like 1.5 or 2 times sped up. I can't do them 3 or 4 times sped up. I can do like 1.5 or 2. Otherwise I feel like things just get lost. But we can hear things faster than we can read them. But they still take a long time because Brandon Sanderson writes tomes. So let's just go ahead and look at it. So in April I had read the first Mistborn book, The Final Empire. I had also started Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which just is a physical book, and like I said, maybe I'm just not going to get into those. Our May Poe read was The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, which is a Frankenstein-esque how far do we push science tale. And in this one in particular, they hypnotize a man just before his death to see if they can prolong life in a hypnotized state. And they're successful. And then they don't know what to do with that information. They can talk to him. He keeps telling them that he's dead. And eventually, months later, this gentleman who's done the hypnotizing and the 2 doctors who were involved in this decide that they're going to pull him out of hypnosis. And of course, they're pretty sure he's going to die immediately. What they don't expect is for him to, like, decompose immediately. And y'all know I keep first lines of books back here. The first line of this is pretty run-of-the-mill. It is the last line that just got me because it just ends so abruptly. And that line is, upon the bed, before that whole company, there lay a nearly liquid mass of loathsome, of detestable putridity. It's just one of those lines I kind of wish I'd written. I don't know, there's something about it that I just love. I gave it 3.5 stars because it's not my favorite of the Poe stories. I think the entire premise of it is, I mean, interesting, sure, but a little bit ludicrous. And I just wrote, oh my god, that last sentence. That's what I cared about. Anyway, and then like I said, it's the world of Sanderson that we are in now, because I need fantasy escapism. I need to be in worlds that are not of my own, and that is what fantasy gives me. So, you know, Well of Ascension, traditionally 592 pages. Again, I did do this with my ears. This is my least favorite of the trilogy, I think, is the middle book. It's a lot of people's favorite of the trilogy. For me, I found that there was a whole lot of angst. There were 3 or 4 major characters in this who kept going through that, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, why do they want to be with me? Oh, why am I turned to for wisdom and information? Oh, why is it me? No, just own your power is how I feel about it. There was just a lot of angst. And then the last 150 pages sets up the 3rd book so perfectly. Like, it's just, if he had written the entire 600 pages as he wrote the last 150, it would have been easy a 5-star. But it wasn't, and so it's a 4 for me. The Well of Ascension. And then immediately into Hero of Ages. I did give it 5 stars. I didn't feel I could write a terribly lengthy review because I just have so much to say about it in my noggin, mainly about religious imagery and faith in general. And then I said, but spoilers. This is definitely the building of something bigger. You can tell that the first 3 Mistborn books were leading to what has now become this realm of Cosmere. And did Brandon Sanderson know that that's where it was going to go? Maybe. From what I understand, he tends to plot out literally every detail, which is why his world building is so specific. His magic systems are so intricate. Anyway, it was a great book for rounding out the series. If you haven't been watching my reading journals before, I put favorite quotes over here, my thoughts over here if I have lengthy thoughts, and that's about it. If I do really feel moved by a book, I'll try to create like a little collage-y something to remember it by as well. I haven't been doing that recently. I just haven't had the time. But I did love the beginning of the Mistborn series. This was the first trilogy. I have other books to read, but I jumped out of Mistborn and into some other things. But I stuck with Brandon Sanderson. So I did not set up my June pages on camera. It just, May got away from me. But here I wrote, I'm still reading Encyclopedia of Fairies. It's still on deck. I enjoy it. I want to read it, just haven't had time. And then the other things that I picked up are pick for June is a manuscript found in a bottle, which was originally published under just Found in a Bottle, I believe. Again, horror, short story, fiction, 4,000 or almost 5,000 words. I rated it 2 stars. It's not my favorite. It's very abrupt. I literally wrote narrator board ship, shipwrecks. Narrator survives wreck with a Swede. Swede dies. Narrator boards ghost ship and lives for some time. Ghost ship sinks in whirlpool. That's what it ghost ship sinks in whirlpool. I can't read my own handwriting. And then I gave myself another little work life continues to be a struggle, so I am reading with my ears. And all physical books are on hold. Like I said, just, if you need to document maybe why you didn't read as much in one month as another, if you feel like you need to have that, if you look back and go, why was this so empty? You can remember to give yourself grace and room to breathe, which is what I wrote for myself. The next Brandon Sanderson that I jumped into was Warbreaker, and I have yet to print a book cover, and that's because I haven't printed anything recently, and I don't just want to print a book cover on a piece of paper. I like to combine things when I am printing things and print a lot of things at once. And so this is real life, people. We don't have a cover here for Warbreaker until I get ready to print some other things, and then I'll stick it on there. So in Warbreaker, we have 2 sisters who go on 2 very different growth paths, and I mention them down here. One of the things that I have realized with Sanderson is that there are some givens. He's always going to have fantastic world building. There's always going to be some religious imagery. There's going to be a magic system so thought out that it might even seem confusing, which was the case for Warbreaker. For me, it took me a really long time to latch on to the magic system. Not sure I still understand it fully. And not everything is as it appears to be. He likes misdirection. And then on the religious imagery, I broke out to elaborate. There are gods. Who are the gods? Were they born or made? Do they deserve to be deities? Can gods have doubts? Can gods give up their place? These are themes that were also in the Mistborn series. So I just kind of had to flesh them out here. This is where they landed in my thought process. I liked these 2 sisters. The realm that they come from, their hair color changes with their moods. Turns red when they're angry. Turns white when they're scared. It's a cool touch, but they weren't my favorite characters. And I always want to be able to latch on to female heroines. There was a god named Lightbringer who was definitely my favorite character. And then there is an awakened or animated sword called Nightblood, who's definitely going to resurface because he's got a whole lot more to say. And I know Sanderson hasn't written right now Warbreaker as a standalone, but I need to know what Nightblood has got going on. There just wasn't enough Nightblood in Warbreaker for me, and I love that sword and his sassiness. He's a very sassy sword. But those are my thoughts so far as I begin this Brandon Sanderson journey, having not read him previously and starting down this rabbit hole. I think after the book I'm currently reading, I may take a little bit of a Sanderson break. I'm not going to take a fantasy break, but I might take a little bit of a Sanderson break. Okay. So the book that I read in between all of the Brandon Sanderson, and my favorite way to read a celebrity memoir or a memoir from anyone, is when they narrate it to you. And that's how I first got into audiobooks. I had struggled with other audiobooks in the past, and then I started with memoirs, my first being Michelle Obama's memoir, and that's what broke the ice for me. I have a full review of Viola Davis's Finding Me on my website at Dots and Beyond, and I will link that down below. I touch on some of the things here. This entire memoir hinges on the first memory she has of being broken at the age of 8 or 3rd grade, being chased after school by these boys, hurling insults at her, calling her ugly. The general trauma that she lived in, and absolute poverty. As she says in the book, they weren't poor, they were po, and they knew it. To university, earning her way into Juilliard, and still being considered not enough for Hollywood for so many years. She was too black, and it was an astonishing read for me, not because of what it enlightened in me and the perceptions of both black and white Americans and what they see as beautiful, but because I have always considered Viola Davis to be exquisite. That is the word I use to describe her. She's one of my favorite actresses. The first thing I remember seeing her in was in Out of Sight with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. She mentions it in the book. And that was in like 1998. So she was on my radar long before movies like The Help or the television show How to Get Away with Murder finally launched her into the mainstream. And every time she popped into a movie, I was like, oh, this movie's going to be so much better because it has Viola Davis in it. From Suicide Squad to, like I said, The Help, other things that she's popped in. I'm like, oh, there she is. This movie's going to be better because this one person is in it. And so she grew up always feeling less than. And in my eyes, she has always been this exquisite human. And what I wrote in my review is that perceptions have a lot to do with time and place. Because though I am an American and though I am white, I was raised in East Africa. And I was raised around beautiful African women. And for a long time, my very pale, splotchy skin, I wanted to be ebony because I was surrounded by African women and I had African friends. I also had plenty of white friends, European, Australian, Asian friends, Arab friends. We were a very multicultural society, but when I was little, I remember very much wanting to be black. But this it is stunning. It is heartbreaking. There are tons of trigger warnings in this book, from domestic abuse to sexual abuse to drug use. Just check the trigger warnings before going in. I've put some of them on my Storygraph, I believe. They are also on Goodreads, so you can check those out. They're also on my review on my blog. I put some of those trigger warnings on there as well. But this book is as exquisite as Viola Davis is, and just the chutzpah that it takes for her to write this book that is based around this entire premise of her ugliness, and then just for the cover to just be this. I just love her. I just think she is one of the most powerful humans, and her story, she has risen out of the ashes as a phoenix multiple times, burned up and risen again, and burned up and risen again, and I'm just in awe. Her story is so inspiring, and there truly is a story there of forgiveness, and it was one that I needed to hear. So 5 stars for me for Finding Me. I actually stopped it partway through. I had to take a break because it was pretty intense. And so I started it near the beginning of the month of June, took a little bit of a break, started and finished Warbreaker, I believe. And then I came back and finished finding me before moving on to my next Brandon Sanderson. And that's where we are, where we need to set up for July. So we're gonna try to do this quickly because I've done all my chitty chatting already for what I have read, and we've talked about our pose. So let me know in the comments below if you read either of our Poe stories. Had you read either of them before? I had not. I decidedly had not read either of those Poe stories before. Don't know if I'll ever voluntarily pick them up again. They just weren't my favorite. I don't know. Like I said, I did love that final line of The Curious Case of M. Valdemar and its putrescence, which is just a great word. Overall, I didn't really love it. One of the other things that I have done here is I've stopped writing out chapter and I've just started doing CH. And you can probably hear thumping over top of my voice. And that would be the child of my upstairs neighbor. And y'all, I raised boys mostly in apartments. I did own a house at one point, and then when I moved into the city of Little Rock, I chose not to be a homeowner again. I pretty much hate homeownership. And so there are certain things that you take with communal living, right? You know that if you're in a bottom apartment, you're probably gonna have an upstairs neighbor. But this individual who's moved in upstairs has no control over the child that lives with her. I think, I'm not gonna say it's mom, I think it is grandma upstairs, and so I'm trying very much to be even more patient. But like I said, I raised boys mainly in apartments and did it without complaint from my neighbors. And when we first moved here, our favorite neighbors directly next door to us had 3 small kids and a baby. I think there were 4 children in there, and we never heard those kids. Those were the most well-behaved kids. And mom was a 911 operator that worked crazy hours, and dad was a nurse, and I don't know, but they were doing what they had to do to take care of those kids, working opposite shifts from one another. And it was months before I knew how many kids they had in there. And then we finally started to get to know one another and talk. And I was like, you have the most well-behaved children because they never bother us. Now, this child that is upstairs from me is constantly going, and I just want her to take him someplace where he can burn off some energy or enroll him in some classes. It makes it very difficult on days that I work from home, and I do work from home 2 days a week, and it has gotten bad enough to want to drive me out of my own home and return to the office or whatnot. Or I have people on Zoom calls ask me what that noise is, and I don't know what to do about it. Do you go upstairs and talk to the neighbor? Do you point out? I mean, she's got to know. There have been other issues. We've had some plumbing issues, some toilets overflowing, coming down into my space, and her not reporting it at all. So me being the one to call maintenance and say, we have a problem and I need help and that sort of thing. And she doesn't even do that. So again, I am actually looking at moving. I need to move. I need more space. So my filming corner, my creative corner, I never got around to filming a create with me or get to know my creative corner sort of video during Plan Miss. I had intended to do that in December. I have rearranged that space now 3 times because it is in a corner of my bedroom, and I have a very large bedroom. It fits. It's really not the issue. It's just I need an office space, not just for filming and Dots and Beyond, but for work as well. I need a dedicated office space so that, you know, my bed is not in the back of my Zoom calls, although I do put up a background or blur the background, you know, all of those sorts of things. But yeah, let me know. How would you handle the neighbor? I don't think I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna highlight this red, and I just think that's gonna be too much. So we're gonna do the Tombow in 85. And then I'll write that header in red. But yeah, would you talk to the neighbor? I don't know. I have another neighbor that is very quiet and also doesn't let our apartment managers know when things are wrong. And we've also had plumbing issues with them. And I don't live in a terrible apartment complex. Let me just say that. I live in a fairly nice apartment complex. My apartment manager refers to the apartment above me as being cursed because they've had to evict. I've had like 6 neighbors up there since I moved in, and they've had to evict everyone out of it. And most of the people that live in this apartment complex are long timers. They've been here for a while. That's not like they've, it's not very transient. Let me put it that way. So I just finally told my apartment manager, I said, I feel like now with the person that you've moved in above me, I have no choice. I feel like I have to go. Okay, so here we are. My pick for July is The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which I've read, but it's been quite a long time. Like our April read, it is another one of these beginnings of crime fiction sort of stories. I don't know that we wholly attribute that to Poe and give him accolades for creating the genre, but this is another one of those stories that has many of those elements in it. And then I am currently listening to or reading via my ears The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I promise I'll take a break from Sanderson at some point. And then let me go ahead and put in my month tracker. I'm filming this on the 2nd. I've already done some reading this month. Last night I went to bed, we had a lot going on. I fell asleep with my audiobook running, which is rare. Normally I turn it off and remember turning it off and, doing the final go to bed things. Last night I don't remember it, so now I gotta go back and figure out where I was when I fell asleep. Which, with an audiobook at least you can go back and see where you started and just kind of forward until you figure out when you start hearing things you don't remember hearing. I've been thinking, because I'm only about 15-20% of the way through, and I'm already having little, do I really know what's going on kind of questions in my head, and I may need to backtrack, and again, with epic fantasy and what Sanderson writes is definitively epic fantasy. There's so much groundwork he's got to lay when he establishes a new world, right? And while he typically does dump you into the middle of some action, he's also got an info dump along the way. And he's very good about integrating that info dumping into the story. But I'm not sure I fully know what's going on right now. And if I don't figure it out in the next chapter or two, I might have to backtrack. And figure out. Be like, wait, I've missed something somewhere. I don't know who these characters are. I really kind of wish I had done this Sanderson thing with print books so that I had the maps. Maps are big in fantasy and they're helpful. We have them in our books for a reason. So that's where we are. We've got July set up. We're going to read The Murders in the Rue Morgue. I'm currently reading Way of Kings. I have updated my first lines back here in the back. I did realize I had left off my Poe reading, so I had to do 3 of my Poes right in a row. So Man of the Crowd, The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, and Manuscript Found in a Bottle. All right here, but I was sort of keeping up with the others as well. Back to the beginning. I have added most things to my index. So yeah, there's Warbreaker and Finding Me is not on here. I'll get that on there. And what page is that on? Let's make a page number 53, 54, 55. I may have to come through here and double check a couple things. I'm not sure I have my Poes on here as well. We will look and see. And then I have been keeping this up to date. Look, I never fixed my spelling of memoirs here, y'all. At some point I need to do that. But I have filled in this box completely. I had it filled in on a diagonal because I had read 1 memoir and I have now read 2 because I finished Viola Davis's book. So that goal for the year is complete. 3 series and working on it. We're getting there. They're just not the series I had started before the year. They're series I've started and I've ended and it's a whole big mess. Read 365. I'm still keeping up again with reading every day, even if it's that just 5 minutes of an audiobook. And like I said, when the book is 1,000 pages long, 5 minutes doesn't get you very far. So it's taking me, you know, a whole month to read 2 books. I have added a lot more to my release radar. I went ahead and put Map of the Otherlands, which is the sequel to Encyclopedia of Fairies, which will come out in 2024. Even though I haven't finished it yet, I've put a couple other things on here. Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman I have highlighted because I actually bought it, so I already have that one. Yeah, just some other things that I added. My backlist, I haven't, since I filled in these, I haven't touched this since maybe March. Maybe we'll get to some more of those. This is my fear of missing out. So those books that I see other places that I pick up, or I want to pick up. So it's the Writing Retreat and Encyclopedia of Fairies again. And I've got those X'd off because I actually did buy them. And then Popix. Here are our Popix. Murders in the Rue Morgue, which is long. Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about that. As far as short stories go, it's one of his longer short stories, so just be prepared for that. I do have audio and text links below because everything with Poe is open source. You don't have to pay for it if you don't want to. So I will link that down below for you if you want to join us on our Popix. Most of the time I listen and read simultaneously for my Poe stories. I have mostly updated my haul. I did this just this week because I realized that my book crawl haul, for those of you who watched that video, I went on a book crawl and bought a lot of used books. So I needed to update everything from April 29th that I bought. And I think I have most of them in here. I might have missed out on a few. I skipped May for book of the month. And then I picked up The Wishing Game. And then for July, I'm getting Immortal Longings. I've never read anything by Chloe Gong because I typically don't do YA. Love some Shakespeare. And this is an Antony and Cleopatra retelling. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't have super high hopes. We'll see. My series tracker, Mistborn, is here. Stormlight Archive is what I'm currently reading. Warbreaker I went ahead and put on here even though it doesn't have any sequels yet because I just think he's gonna write some. Other than that, nothing here has changed. I still haven't read the last book in the Invisible Library series because I just don't want it to end, which is stupid. Which is also Genevieve Cogman. The Invisible Library series was fully my brain candy read for the longest time. Like if I just wanted to escape into an easy fantasy read, that was it. But I love books about books and books about libraries. My mother's a librarian, so there's that. Still, the only DNF I have is the rest of the Bridgerton series. I just will not. Faves, I have gotten Brave, and I have put Finding Me on here. Even though I have other 5-star reads, the only one that I have definitively said will be one of my top 8, I have put right there. And that catches us up. Okay, so let me do it back and check really quickly. Yeah, so Murders in the Rue Morgue is almost 14,000 words, which is, 10,000 more than Manuscript Found in a Bottle. So just know that going in. If you're going to read Murders in the Rue Morgue, it is much longer than most of Poe's other things. And the only thing I have left to do is stick on my little July sticker. So while I am doing that, if y'all will drop down into the comments, let me know what you're reading. Let me know if there's anything I should be reading, if and when I can find the time. So like I said, I need to find a way to regain some work-life balance. There we go. July. Ready to go. We've caught up on my reading journal. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this quick catch up. I'll try to make sure that we get a July recap in there as well. So if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.